Good afternoon and welcome back. This is US Home Talk. We are live every Wednesday at noon and on demand at ushometalk.com or wherever you guys find your podcasts. We are your hosts, Marcus Walgrave with the South Dakota Home Team powered by Hague Realtors, Jason Walgrave with Walgrave Real Estate Group at RE/MAX Advantage Plus, and Evan Little, our amazing producer and insurance guru. We'll be taking all your questions during today's show. Anything and everything real estate. The call-in number is 612-234-7585. Again, that's 612-234-7585. Or you can leave us a message in the comments section on Facebook. Good afternoon, Jason and Evan. How you guys doing today?
Good afternoon. Doing fantastic.
Excellent. Looks like we got a little... Getting some feedback here about what's going on. Little technical difficulties. Let me see if I can figure this out. Let's see here.
Technical difficulties.
Check. Still sound good?
Go.
Can you? Ooh, is it better?
Much better.
That's better.
Ooh, delightful. We're gonna have a great show today. As always, we talk about real estate on US Home Talk. Now, this is a topic that kind of caught my attention, not because it's new for me specifically, but just to see that other states are not obviously it's something that I was aware of that other states are dealing with, but in terms of just to kind of see that other states were trying to address this during the election. So I thought that was very interesting and wanted to talk about. So what I'm alluding to is the rise of real estate taxes. The cost of real estate taxes is on the rise. To no surprise, I think just using that general statement, right, Jason? They're on the rise. Well, yeah, of course they're on the rise, and which they usually do. I mean, they typically do go up annually. However, I think one thing that has been very hard and a burden on a lot of homeowners is just at the rate that it has increased here in these recent years, and so that's kind of what I'm looking to just to chat about here today, and kind of give you guys a little heads up if you're not a homeowner or maybe this is a new news to you. Hopefully, you'll kind of get some great information from it. So, what I'd like to just to kind of touch on here is the Wall Street Journal. Here just recently put out an article by Will Parker, and this just came out on November 9th. So not too old. And post-election, and really what the name, the title of the article is Americans Staged a Property Tax Revolt on Election Day. So that's what grabbed my attention. It was talking about how there was some action going on during Election Day, and while I read into it, it just was talking about that voters in 8 U.S. states during the election passed measures to offer some form of relief on property taxes, and so I thought it'd be interesting just to kind of talk about this topic, mostly because myself, I am a board of director on the South Dakota Realtor Association. And being a board of director, I have the opportunity to join specific committees. And one committee that I found interesting, personally, was the Government Affairs Committee, and that was a committee that I wanted to be on because I thought that there'd be a lot of really interesting information that was going to come about it. So here in the last in the last 12 months, that's how long I've been on this committee. Prior to the Government Affairs Committee, I was on Members Services, which is a great committee as well. Just not as personally, I was not as passionate about something like that than I was in government affairs. I kind of was interested in how the politics play out. How do things how does the ball get rolling, and how do we turn into issues? How do we find solutions for those issues? And one topic that has been a hot topic in the state of South Dakota is the real estate taxes that we pay. Now, just to kind of give you guys a nutshell, and this is a lot I'm trying to pull a lot of this stuff from memory, so I might be off 1% or 2% when I give you these numbers, but you'll get the picture. South Dakota, when they collect real estate taxes, the revenue that they receive, it comes really from 3 major, I'm going to call them players. I forget the exact word that was used to describe them, but one is occupied, the other one is non-occupied, and the third one is agriculture. Now, if you're sitting there at home and you're decent with math, you're going to sit back and you're going to say, okay, it's not making up 100%, which yes. And so I'm not, I don't know if that fourth part is maybe industrial, but the big ones, the big ones that matter and that the state collects the largest percentage from is occupied, non-occupied, and agriculture. So occupied, to put it more in layman terms for all of us, is what we would consider residential in the state of South Dakota. Non-occupied would fall into like that commercial territory, and then agriculture, farmland. So I mean that one's pretty self-explanatory on what agriculture is. So as of right now, I might be off 1% or 2%, but if we looked at what the state of South Dakota brings in, who they're collecting real estate taxes from, and you look at the entire collection, occupied residential makes up 44% of the taxes that was collected for real estate taxes. 30% is non-occupied, or the commercial sector. And then the last one is 20% is coming from agriculture. Now, in the state of South Dakota, agriculture is the economic driver in our state. In 2016, there was a law that was passed in the state of South Dakota that stated that agriculture real estate taxes were to be assessed based on soil production, not sold comparables. And at that time, occupied and non-occupied real estate taxes were about equal. They were roughly right around 33%. So residential and the occupied and agriculture were about the same. Residential was about 33%, agriculture was about 33%, commercial was right around like 30%. Since that bill is passed, residential real estate, as I said earlier, is now up to 44% of the total amount of real estate taxes that's collected in our state, while agriculture has dropped to only account for about 20% of the real estate taxes that are collected in the state of South Dakota. Obviously, anybody sitting there say, well, I mean, that seems to be pretty unfair, right? Especially knowing that agriculture is the driving economical factor in our state of South Dakota. And so some people have kind of turned and say, okay, well, does it have to do with the law that was passed in 2016? So to kind of put it in the reason why, from my understanding, the reason why that law got passed in 2016, which I think was a fair law and a good law that was passed, but at that time it was with the idea that you had the state of South Dakota was growing. There was people that were finding that our state was very attractive, especially in the taxes that we have. They're very attractive taxes. So our cities were growing. And Jason, you know this very well, right? If there's a chunk of farmland that is sold on the outskirts of a growing city, that farmland is going to sell for a pretty penny. That's fair to say, right?
I mean, I would say as much as 10 times what it would sell for if it was just ag land. And so
Just-
ag
yes.
land compared to, it's, I mean, I've seen it 10 times higher. Two quick questions for you, Marcus. One is, when you say unoccupied, does that include properties that are owned by an investor but rented out to a tenant?
Yeah, non-occupied. So like twin homes, townhomes. From my understanding, those fall into residential. Where people are living in the building. It is their
Gotcha.
their home.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's
So they don't have
that's
to
my
own it.
understanding.
It's just okay. So if a
Occupied.
person's living
Yeah,
there,
it's not ownership. It's a real estate that's occupied by residents.
gotcha.
That's from my understanding of it. That's my understanding of it. So, but to your example, Jason. So let's put some numbers. So you said 10 times, right? When the law got passed, it was to say, hey, farmers, we are not going to assess your value based on sold comps. Because of that exact reason of if the farmer whose farmland is butting right up against the Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is in a high demand to people to move there for many reasons, that farmer is going to be able to sell his farmland or her farmland for 10 times the value. So if that farmer was maybe 60 miles to the west, out in the middle of all farmland surrounding them, just for simple numbers here, people, not saying that that's where we're at, but $2,500 an acre that farmer might be able to grab. Since that farmer is on the outskirts of Sioux Falls, that farmer might be able to pull in 10 times more, which would be $25,000 an acre. I think that's a fair multiplier. I think that's a good number to use. Kind of a good example, and I think that's some numbers that you would see for that. So a farmer who might be just 30 miles to the west, it's not fair for that farmer for their land to be assessed because Mr. and Mrs. Johnson sold their farmland to a developer 30 miles to the east and got 10 times the value for it.
Right.
Totally understand it. Totally support that. Right. I mean, that makes total sense. However, and what they did is they went to a soil production a concept. So instead, now it's saying, hey, if you own farmland and it is highly it produces at a high level, the production is at the top tier. That makes sense for that farmer to pay more real estate taxes than the other farmer who might own the same amount of acres, but maybe 90% of it is in some sort of like conservation or it's just what am I trying to say? Like slough land, a lot of wetland. Yeah, CRP land or just simply, used for grazing the cattle, things of that nature. That's obviously going to be quite a bit. And we see that as well, Jason. I mean, when you see a premium farmland that has top tier soil and that farmland sells, I mean, it's going to sell significantly more per acre than the individual who's, all their land is right and sitting in the, in the wetlands, and you can't farm any of it. I mean, that makes total sense. So that 2016 happened, and then obviously there's other factors that have happened since 2016, right? We had the COVID year era, and where we saw such demand of prices to go up, and so when you look at residential, occupied real estate in South Dakota. That's not based off of soil production, obviously. It's based off of sold comparables. So when the assessors in your county are going through there and they're saying, okay, how do we need to adjust the assessed values on this neighborhood? Well, they go back and they look at sold data. And so if there have been 10 exceptional sold properties, comparable properties to your home, and they've all sold in the last year, Well, that county is going to have a good idea on what your home is worth in today. And so a lot of residential homeowners, they've seen their assessed value skyrocket here in the last, 3-4 plus years. And as I said, this has been a growing topic in my state. But it was interesting to see in that Wall Street Journal, Jason, to see how a lot of other states are dealing with this, and they simply just took it. They took it to the election. They were able to put it on the ballot and let the people kind of vote to see how to fix it. So the interesting thing about real estate taxes that I find interesting is, you talk about some people and they say, well, what are the solutions here? Well, some of the solutions, some of the proposed solutions, I mean, time will tell, right? If it actually fixes anything. But some of the proposed solutions are you cap the real estate tax rate per year. So meaning like, it doesn't really matter whether, your neighborhood blew up in terms of demand and buyers came in and they said, you know what, this neighborhood's undervalued. We're going 10, 20% above this price, and those properties are selling. They're being recorded at the county. Even if your sold comps would suggest that your value should go up 20% because that's what the buyers bought a comparable home to, some states are kind of pass some rules and laws or amendments saying, you know what, your assessed value is capped. Maybe it can only go up 10% per year, even though that the sold comps are suggesting that it should go up 20%. So putting a cap on the annual increase of your assessed value, that's kind of a proposed solution that people are hoping that are going to do. I've heard of some talks of trying to revert back to the pre-COVID assessed value. To saying, hey, that's an outlier event.
That'd be fantastic.
We can't do that.
Huh?
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad. But
so question for you, Marcus,
Yep.
just so I can have a comparison in my own mind. So give me an example. A $500,000 property in Sioux Falls. Approximately what are those annual taxes?
You're probably looking at in Sioux Falls. You're probably looking at like $6,500 a year.
Okay, $6,500. So you're basically at 1.3%, 1.3% of value or assessed value rather. So what's interesting about that is, when I think of South Dakota not having a state income tax,
Yes.
my mind immediately goes to, well, I mean, it has to be made up somewhere, right? And so my mind is like, well, they're probably making it up in the real estate taxes. But if you look at Twin Cities metro, 13 county metro, you can calculate what your taxes are going to be. It's based on county and city, right? And so you can.
Yep.
There's a range depending on where you're at, anywhere from 1.1 to 1.3 is generally going to give you a pretty good idea of what your taxes are. Minneapolis taxes are going to be higher than, a suburb, and lakeshore taxes are going to be higher than non-lakeshore taxes. And so, it's interesting that that's the number you gave me because I was expecting you to tell me a much higher number than that. I was expecting 1.6 to 1.8 percent of the assessed value as far as a range or a gauge. But you're not that much higher in property taxes than we are, but yet you don't have a state income tax.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons why so many people are moving to South Dakota. I think that's the tax. Our tax structure is very favorable. People find it very attractive, whether it's earlier in your career or at the end of your career or retired years. A big factor on why people are moving to South Dakota, and then Sioux Falls has obviously a lot of other things. The mill levy is something that is part of is the main component to your real estate tax formula that they have over at the counties, and so I kind of gave you that multiplier there. However, Jason, if you were a home that got built in a brand new development, that was a part of a brand new school district, one that because we're having to build elementary schools and middle schools and high schools, we're having to satisfy the need for education because so many people are moving here. So when you have that type of new infrastructure, obviously, who's paying for the schools? A lot of that, yeah, taxpayers are. So when we get into neighborhoods that are part of brand new school districts, those are going to hold higher mill levy rates, and so then yeah, maybe those are closer to like that 1.5, 1.6 number. But so like kind of going back to those solutions and trying to figure out how to go about that. And another one is, okay, well, maybe what we need to do is the municipalities aren't going to, the government's not going to collect less taxes. Right. We all know that's not going to happen. If something were to pass it, residential is paying too much, we're going to do something to give them relief. They may get relief, but somebody else is going to get stuck with the bill. That's just how it works. So then it's like, okay, well, so then what do? You go after the farmers. That's not a good solution. Right. And so, there's these concepts or proposals, out there, or kind of even going into that you cap it, right? You say, hey, your assessed value can't go up any more than 5% per year, 6%. Taxes pay for our roads and our schools and our police departments and that's what our taxes pay for. So if we're capping that, but everything else is on the rise for costs, so then what's going to happen? So I mean, it's a super interesting topic. I mean, I think this is definitely one of the burdens that home ownership has down the road. Insurance is high, real estate taxes are kind of going up, and assessed values are going up, and so but I think that when you start seeing you start seeing other states kind of passing these laws or amendments to their constitution to try to address that. You can tell that this isn't just a South Dakota thing, or a Midwest thing. I mean, this is from like I read in the Wall Street Journal article. I mean, you're talking about, they're talking about states, in the East Coast, down in the South, over on the West. And I mean, this is the whole U.S. is kind of, this is a hot topic. Why are real estate taxes going up so fast, for the residential, the occupied sector. And so you really can't just like pass the buck, right? You gotta have to come up with a different solution. But it's interesting. I mean, I find it super interesting. I know that being a part of the government affairs committee that I'm on, this will most likely be, the number one topic that is discussed throughout 2025 and probably even into 2026. This will probably be the topic that everybody's kind of asking questions about. But I mean, as of right now, it just, in the state of South Dakota, it just, the ratio is just not there. It's not fair. I mean, residential, the occupied sector shouldn't be paying 44% when eggs down to 20 and commercial has always kind of stayed at 30, right around there, give or take a couple percent. But, something has to kind of get corrected in our state. And I'm sure that that's probably very similar, what other states are seeing, really that the residential sector is the one that's kind of getting beat up the most when it comes to the increase of real estate taxes that the state is collecting from. So I mean, it's do you, Jason, do you hear your clients or people? I guess one other thing that I wanted to say too, in terms of like, if you do put a cap on it, right, that's not going to stop the transaction piece of it. So this cap is really for the individuals who are staying in their home. If you say, hey, you know what, real estate taxes are going to get capped at 6% annual. Your assessed value won't go up any more than 6% annual. A lot of the states, from how I was reading the article, is that's where they were stopping it. But if a transaction happens, well, then your assessed value is going to be based off of sale price.
Sure.
So then it kind of puts it into, we already have an inventory issue, right? So now we tell homeowners, okay, homeowners, your taxes are capped for, moving forward. However, if you want to sell your home and you want to go buy something else in the same neighborhood, and you buy a home that's from an owner that's owned it for 20 years, and they've been taking advantage of that cap rate, but as soon as you buy it, it's going to go into a new assessed value based on sale price. Well, it's going to discourage homeowners, right? So then it kind of like it's going to put even more burden on that first time home buyer, the people who are trying to get into houses. It's like if they know that, okay, well, I'm the only one who's going to get stuck with this new value of a home because I'm purchasing it, but the homeowners that own it, they're simply capped. It's an interesting dilemma. I mean, I don't, of all the things that I've seen proposed, none of them look that attractive. Somebody's losing in the situation. So it'll be interesting to see how my state, South Dakota, works on this issue, and see if there's some sort of solution that can be found. I know, I want to say it was like maybe in the, one of the biggest burdens on the mill levy rate is the schools, is the building of schools, because that's very expensive. And the video lottery, when that was passed in the state of South Dakota, the taxes that were collected on video lottery were to go 100% to the schools. Huh. So that was like, okay, we need another one of those. We need another one of those industries where it's a new industry to the state. And that's where, like,
for you. I got one for you, Marcus.
What's that?
Recreational cannabis.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that
huge revenue stream for states that have adopted that. Huge revenue.
Yes, I think that is because that's been on. See, Jason, that's been on the ballot in South Dakota 3 times. Didn't the voters vote yes for it, but it got punted by the governor or something? No, not true. I think that's kind of like a clickbait attack on the governor's position on it. So the South Dakota Constitution states that if there are if you're proposing to make an amendment to the Constitution, you can only have one per amendment per voting box. So when it first went to the ballot, it was a 2-part. It said, do you want marijuana to be legalized medically? And then within that same one, it was also, do you want it to be legalized recreationally? Well, that got passed. But then the governor came in and said, hey, that you can't put 2 amendments into one voting block. You have to separate those. So that's how they were able to appeal it and ultimately won. Because it was going against the South Dakota Constitution, how to amend laws. So then when it went on the next round for election, it was on the ballot and it was separate, just recreational. There wasn't a 2-part, and then the people voted it down. And then it was on the ballot again a second time by itself, recreational by itself, and it got voted down again here just recently.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. So I do think that like kind of looking at big picture, I think that there is that chance, right? I think you have the advocates in the marijuana industry. My guess is they're probably going to try to play off of that. they're going to probably, because you're exactly right. Because that's one thing that I've thought of as well. I mean, that's really one industry that's recreational. I mean, it's medical here, but that's not really a tax
the income
generating.
The same.
Yeah. Yep. So yes, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if the people who are advocates of recreational marijuana come in and try to ride on that topic and say, hey, this is why you need to vote for it to pass it next time. And I don't even know how many times you can put something on the ballot and get rejected and still get it on the ballot. So, but nonetheless, I think it's going to be interesting. I think we're here in the next couple of years, we're going to see more talk, more activity in my state of South Dakota. Just looking at some other states, like the state of North Dakota, they were trying to remove all real estate taxes. Like nobody's going to pay real estate taxes. Damn. And that obviously got rejected because I mean you can imagine how damaging that would be in terms of like what the state collects. And for example, there was some really interesting information that was some stats that were provided in that article that I read. And here, see if I can pull some up here real quick. Well, we still got a couple minutes left on the show. So local governments levied, where is this? This was a stat. I'm not certain where the stat came from, but this is from the Wall Street Journal article. Local governments levied $363.3 billion in property taxes on single-family homes in 2023. And that was a 6.9% increase from 2022 and the largest increase in the last 5 years. So that, and the last time that this has been a topic in terms of like on the ballot was during the last time we had inflation issues. And that was, you going back to the 70s and 80s. So that was the last time that like people were seeing this and were concerned about it. So I think that that's going to be kind of the hot topic moving forward here. Here's another good one. This is one, some of the laws or the amendments or that were done in Florida, but just stating that a downside of lower property tax collections can be less money for local governments and school districts. One analysis from a Florida state government agency estimated that Florida's new inflation-tied tax exemption will cost local governments more than $400 million in the first 5 years alone. Yeah, woof, right? So then it's like, how do you, it just seems like it's a lose-lose. But I really believe in our country, and I believe that we have some very smart people, and somebody's going to come up with a good idea on how we can help the homeowner, the residential property owner with the taxes that they're dealing with, but still protect our infrastructure, our local governments, and our school districts. Making sure that our kids are receiving exceptional education is very, very important. So I know our parents always joked about when it came to tax time, they weren't ever excited to pay taxes, but they felt very blessed they were in a position to pay taxes in the greatest country in the world. And so it's kind of one of those deals, right? It's like you see it and you're like, oh, I got to pay how much taxes this year? But then it's like, you know what? The roads I took to drop my girls off at school today, they're in pretty dang good shape. And so is my city. And, if somebody's sick and I need to get to the hospital really quick, well, I'm not worried about the infrastructure and how for me to get my family to the care that they need or the education that they need. So it's one of those deals, right?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. He'll just be. I'll be happy. I'll be happy for myself and the country that I live in, but real estate taxes, I think that that's going to be something that we're going to hear more about in 2025 and 2026 moving forward. It'll be interesting to see how these other states that did pass these laws or amendments to their constitution, to see if there was anything beneficial that came from it, or if it was detrimental to things like this. Did they have to cut the number of city workers because we weren't collecting enough taxes for them? Did they have to let go firefighters and police officers because we don't have the money to pay them? Do we have to not repair that road that really needs it because we just don't have the money for it, because we reduced our tax collection? So it'll be interesting to see if any of these states kind of come out smelling like a rose, and if they do, then sweet, we can just follow what they did.
Yep.
Well, Jason, I know taxes isn't exactly a super exciting topic, but I wanted to talk about it, so I'm glad you were able to hop on and kind of give some insight on what you guys are seeing over there in Minnesota. And as our show comes to an end, we want to thank you all for taking your time to tune in live, and also for your support of US Home Talk. As always, you guys can find our podcast on ushometalk.com or wherever you guys find your shows. This is Marcus Walgrave, Jason Walgrave. Have yourself a blessed day.